Hello and welcome back to the Punchers Chance podcast, and welcome to the review show where we have a look back at everything that's happened in boxing last weekend. Of course, this weekend that is none other than Chris Eubank Jr versus Connor Benn at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Subscribe for lots of great boxing content, review and preview show every week, but straight into the action. What a show.
It was incredible. I think we called it last week, to be fair. We said it could go down as a British classic. Some people thought it was probably going to be a bit too one-sided, but the both of them more than lived up to their fathers' fights in the 90s. I thought it was incredible. They both gave it everything. I think it's the type of fight where, because of the rivalry and how it was built, you'd only get that type of fight in that way. But yeah, it was amazing to watch it.
And do you know the thing is, when Ben said he was able to go and cover it, I was like, oh, you know what, that's fine, you know. My favourite boxer ain't even there, you know. And then all of a sudden, Chris Eubank Sr. appears. I'm like, oh, damn you. I was so jealous when Ben was there, sent us a picture. I was like, oh, well. Then he sent us a message saying they're giving away free merch, which he's wearing today. I was like, okay, that's fair enough. So and then he had a free-course meal. I'm like, yeah. Then he showed us his view, and I'm like, and then it's going downhill and the jealousy's hitting me. And then when he sent us a video after the fight of him and one of my favourite boxers within inches away, it's unbelievable. But the fight itself, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think it would be that good.
Nah, I really don't think it. I thought it would be I actually called it, I think it would be a boring fight because I thought Eubank would box smart, but we couldn't have expected it to be that good, could we?
No,
I think the concern was people were going on about the weight and all that, and I know Ben lost, but in a way Ben's shut up a lot of people as well by showing that he's got the balls to go toe-to-toe with someone who was basically buggered with that rehydration clause, weren't he? Let's be honest, you know, he came in over, what was it, 0.02 over and £500,000 fined, and then he couldn't rehydrate, so he didn't really have the legs as the fight went on, because I think in my prediction I said that if it gets past 4 rounds, then it's Eubank's fight. But because I think of the rehydration clause, he was still up for grabs. Because I don't think Eubank had that sort of... He didn't fuel back up. And I think Ben was... You know, that third round for me was like the telling of, oh, Ben can actually do it now. Ben's got the power to hurt Eubank, which is something I didn't think he had. And then I think from up to round 10, it was even. And again, you're thinking, oh, wow. Ben is actually shocking the world here, you know, with the performance he's putting in, something that I don't think anyone was really expecting him to do. Everyone was expecting either Ben to stop him early or Eubank just to outbox him, simply outbox him. And then when you get to round 10 and it's even, you sat there thinking, this is still up for grabs. And when the referees, when the judges scored it 116, 112, you can see it. But if I'm Ben now, I'm thinking to myself, I can do this, you know, it's 116, 112. Oh, well, you know, if I do some little changes, if I get that more experience, perhaps go away and fight a Barrios now, and then come back, because this rematch is always going to be there for both of them, I think.
I don't know if I want to see it, though. I'm going to be honest.
I don't want to watch it.
I just think that was so perfect, and the fan service... Yep. They're matching the shorts with the gloves with their fathers, the walkouts.
That's just a story in itself.
How brilliant a fight it was. I just think you're not going to capture that essence again. And therefore, I just think, you know what, let's just be happy it happened and not try and recreate it. And I think, like you say, it was a close-ish fight. I think 2 rounds up for Eubank is fair, the 116, 112. The judges got about it different ways, but ultimately that is probably the right result. And like you said, it wasn't necessarily the fight we expected in a lot of ways, but it was almost better. You know, I predicted Chris Eubank Jr. to outbox him, but I think, like you said, after that 3-4 rounds, he sort of realised he didn't have it in the tank to do that, outbox him on the outside, counter him, outwork him, outjab him. And so he just sort of basically decided the only way I'm going to win this is by taking a hell of a lot out of him and, you know, having a bit of a go. And that's what they've done. And I didn't expect Ben to be as good as he was, though, mind. No. I think he impressed us.
They both, I think they, with the occasion as well, and probably the nervous energy, they both started very quick. And I think by the last few rounds, you could see they were both feeling it, but neither of the men wanted to give in. But it was, the full 12 rounds was just a war, like, which I wasn't expecting. Like we said last week, I think we and most other people expected it to be Ben early on, which he did. He come out And I think to his detriment slightly, he was very wild with his punches.
So much.
He was like he was almost jumping into shots, but I think that was maybe a part of inexperience. He obviously hasn't fought in 14 months, and Eubank's just experience picking him off with the cleaner shots, I think, is what won him the fight. I think 116, 112 was fair, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a close fight either.
No, it's 2 rounds, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, going into basically what you're saying is, at the end of round 10, it's probably even, and then I think Eubank did pick up those last 2 because, like you say, he was landing the shots cleaner more often. You know, it was sort of 3 or 4 Eubank shots to a Benn shot in those kind of exchanges, and then that's what wins you the fights.
I think that's the most fight we've ever seen from Chris Eubank as well.
100%.
Like in terms of what he showed in that, he really had to dig in deep, because if he had let Benn take over in the moments where he was getting success, he could have easily been drowned out and lost that fight. But I was really, really impressed with the both of them. But I think Eubank Jr. done the better work and deserved the win. But the best part of the night for me was when Chris Eubank Sr. turned up, because the atmosphere,
the best moment of the year.
It just ramped up from it. It was not only one of British boxing's best moments, but I think just British sport in general. Just when you've seen him, like, because even though there was half a chance he was going to turn up, with everything that's been going on, obviously they haven't spoken in years, you probably didn't think it was going to happen. But when you see that door just slide open, he just steps out, and the aura of the man is just incredible.
You've got to give credit as well, though, to the production teams, because the way they done that with the way that he came out the car door right next to the entrance, and then they're walking through and they have that shot of Nigel, Ben and Connor stood watching the screen, and they're just stood there frozen. They're just...
The thing is, though, they had everything, didn't they, Team Ben? This entire build-up to this fight, you know, everyone was against Eubank.
The odds were stacked in his favour
with the
to
fines,
make it a fairer fight.
The weights, the rehydration. I think it was.
I think so, because I think...
Why did they have a rehydration clause?
Yeah, but...
It wasn't a world title fight.
But Eubank's always fought to 160.
True.
This is natural weight.
No, but I don't think that one runs, because you can... I don't know, let's think of Joe Cordina, Anto Cachace, fighters like this. They fought that weight their whole career, but eventually it gets to a point where they've outgrown that weight. Yeah, and then they move on. And we've seen that so many times. And he's outgrown that weight, and then he's come back down, and not just come back down, but he can't refuel up. And I think it did make a huge difference to the fight, for the better of the fans, but for the worse of his performance. And that's why it was a good fight.
Possibly, but I don't know. I still feel like he had a big advantage being the bigger guy. He did fight someone two weight classes below and went a full 12 rounds.
But was Connor Benn's last couple of fights 147?
He fought a 154.
He fought 154.
So it's not really...
I think
it does make a difference.
There's balance to it, but I do agree with Harry to a point where I think the odds were stacked purposely more in Benn's favour, because on paper, this is a former world champion versus a man who's never stepped past domestic level.
Yeah.
It shouldn't make sense as a fight. And I think that's why the odds were stacked in his favour. But what that meant was we got a brilliant fight. Yeah. And do you know what, though? On the other hand of that, Chris Eubank Jr. and later on then Senior, in terms of the build-up, the media, the mind games, they won all of that, didn't they? They really won from day one onwards. The first presser, the egg slap, not letting Eddie speak, all of this sort of stuff. And then going into the Chris Eubank arriving, walking out second and making Ben wait in there for so long. Really.
And the other thing is, they thought they were being smart by chucking Billy Joe Saunders in to do the hand wrap.
Exactly.
And Eubank's team was having none of it. And apparently the rumours are that Chris Eubank Sr. was actually shouting and kicking him out, telling him to go away and all that. So,
well, he doesn't have a licence, so they don't have to let him into the changing room.
So everything that they did, that they planned, simply in a sense, the Eubanks outsmarted them, because you can tell by the way they were walking to the ring was we had this plan for weeks, I reckon. But at the same time, you can think, and I hope this isn't true, but Turki Al-Sheikh could have had a word with Eubank Senior and said, "Look, Nigel Benn's here. I think this would be very good if you came along."
Did you see the Ring magazine article about that?
I did see it.
Because that did make me laugh.
And you're thinking, well, surely your dad's going to be there to watch you in the biggest fight. And you see all these sort of videos now, everyone's putting together the timeline of Chris Eubank Jr. talking about pain and saying that his dad isn't talking with him, and then Eubank Sr. about Michael Watson walk saying he's a disgrace. And then it cuts into him arriving in the car with him, and you can just tell when they arrived, the smug on their faces that they had. They were like, "We've got you here, boys." And then, like you said, when they quickly turned to Ben's changing room, and they're both there, just standing there, thinking, "Oh no." And then the other thing was what I found funny when they got to the ring after the ring walks, which are probably one of the best ring walks I've ever seen. Eubank Sr. gets in the ring and just goes over to Ben's corner, hugs Nigel Benn, and tries to hug Connor as well.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, this is brilliant.
I think with that, the whole, your father is going to be there for you in your biggest night, but also, let's not forget, Chris Eubank Sr. loves himself a little bit. He likes being in the limelight. He enjoys that whole show and the showmanship of it. Rather, he doesn't like the disrespect and the antics like that, but he does enjoy that, doesn't he? So there was always an element of, he's going to want to be there on the big stage. He's going to want to walk out to Simply the Best again. He's going to want to, have that post-fight interview where, he gets to say his piece, and we're all lapping it up because that's what we wanted.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't want to think too much into it. I just enjoyed the moment. It was just seeing them come out together, both fathers and sons together, to share that moment, to share that night. And you could see afterwards as well, like, obviously you got to see a quick glimpse of both of them after the fight had happened, and you could just see how much one had taken out of them, but also not just them, but how everyone around them was so proud of what they put on as well. Because like a lot would have been made of, well, people were hyping it up really as if they've only got this fight because of their names, and whether they could live up to those fights from the 90s, but they well and truly rivaled it. I think it was such a good fight to watch, a good night of fights in general, I thought. But yeah, it was really good, but not one I want to see again. I don't think we need a good
point there. They didn't have to do boxing, did they? As Eddie Hearn said in the build-up, these two were brought up in silk pyjamas. They were brought up to live a life that they didn't need to go into a ring and beat the living hell out of one another. On Saturday night, they showed exactly how much the pride of your family name means so much to someone. Because Ben's walking to the ring, I can't have a Eubank go 2-0 up over at my family, no way. And Eubank's probably thinking, hang on, I'm not having a Ben beat me, because that's like the worst thing possible. It's like when Wales play England in the rugby, can't have England beating Wales, can't have Wales beating England, the rivalry, and it does
bring out a best performance.
It brings out you see it all the time in any sport when you play a derby. That's a derby. But the thing is, the ring walks you don't get in any other sport, do you? The atmosphere building up, because you have the ring walks and then they go in that ring and they're going to beat the hell out of each other. In sport, you have in rugby, you have like all these like the lights going off, a light show, and then
just not even
thunderstruck.
Nah.
They try and build an atmosphere. Nothing comes close to what the atmosphere at a boxing event can happen and can do. And it was just an incredible night, top to bottom, and I'm just so happy that Chris Eubank Sr. was there, because I had a funny feeling we would be talking on this podcast about, imagine if Sr. was there. Imagine, because I would have just made the night that ever much more better than it was. And it's just incredible. And it literally is, when I saw him arrive, goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that was when the switch in my head was like, yeah, damn you, Ben. You lucky bugger being there.
It's a night to be proud of as a British boxing fan, isn't it? It's the night that you go, yeah, do you know what? No one does it like British boxing. Like, there's so often you kind of fall out of trust and love with British boxing at times, with stupid decisions and just all this kind of stupid politics, and you're like, it's so frustrating. And then you get a night like that and you go, yeah, this is why, we want the events in the UK when they can be, because they're so, so good. And to get onto it, you mentioned it slightly, and you've mentioned it slightly, and the rematch is the talk that everyone's talking about. You said you're inclined to say you maybe want it?
I mean, with the scorecard being 116, 112, Ben, like I said, is probably thinking, if I make some few adjustments, then maybe I could get the win. But
then Eubank Jr. can make the same adjustments.
Yeah, I don't think they make the same money fighting someone else. And I think with Turki Al-Sheikh, I think in the press conference they said about it that they've booked September in Tottenham for it. If they do it, then I'll be happy. But I don't think Eubank Jr is a 160 fighter anymore.
No, he's not.
Connor Benn...
Do you match Connor Benn with Harlem Eubank?
That's what
It's not as big a fight.
To carry on the legacy?
It's not as big a fight, but it's still a good fight. And actually, genuinely, as a boxing fight, it's a good fight.
It's two natural welterweights, and who can still carry on that sort of family rivalry.
And it's never going to be close to the drama of that, and it's never going to compete. But I just don't think you need to.
No, it's a different kind
try
of...
and repeat it.
It's a different kind of story you can tell then on it, and it would be a thing of the Benns trying to finally get that win over the Eubanks. But like you said earlier, that night in its entirety was just perfect.
And you can't repeat that.
It was like you're not gonna get no better. I feel like a rematch, one not only doesn't make sense, but it won't live up to that first fight, and it'll fall a bit flat compared to that first one. So I think the best bet for both is obviously Connor Benn goes back to 147. He has the fight with Barrios. Obviously, he really wants to win our WBC belt. So I think the fight with Barrios makes sense. I think he even though it'd be his first time fighting for a world title, from what he showed on Saturday, he could more than compete, I would have thought. And then Chris Eubank, depending on what he's looking at, he's never won a world title from a major sanctioning body, so he could go, if he wants to fight a middleweight, he's got someone like Zanabek or Carlos Adames that he could fight.
Lara would be the other one.
Yeah, or Lara. Or if 160 is too much of a struggle for him to make, he goes to 168 and he fights Canelo, and you get the best of both worlds. You get one last crack at probably trying to become undisputed after what will happen this weekend. And also, it's a lucrative payday, because if you're fighting Canelo, you're making money.
Yeah.
So
Do you reckon he can get Canelo in the UK, though?
I don't know.
I think they could do Eubank Canelo at Tottenham.
But do you think even with the Crawford fight that they're looking to do?
Not this year, because obviously they've got the Crawford fight, but they could do, or even Wembley or somewhere else, they could get Canelo to fight in the UK. He wants to fight in the UK at some point, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one to tick off, and it'll be a good fight. So who's to say no? And you know, I want to see it.
So what are we going? No for the rematch? No for the
Definitely
rematch?
not.
Okay.
And are you saying yes?
I'm saying yes, because I think...
I think it's more than likely it probably will happen, because you will have a lot of people who will want to see it. And
a lot of people will make money out of it.
And yeah, they're going to make more money probably for a rematch than they would of this first one, but sometimes I think less is more on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cut your losses. If you've got something perfect,
you've got that
don't
perfect.
fix it.
You've got that perfect night to look back on.
The money they're going to get offered for the rematch.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that it won't
no.
happen necessarily. I think it probably will.
Yeah.
But
it won't live up. I agree. It won't live up to the first fight.
At least then, if we have another one, maybe we can see Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon Arthur 4. You know, just to.
What a way to go into that fight.
Well, let's not talk about that one next, because I think it was a less than exciting sort of entree to that main event. I think Chev Clarke Viddal Riley is probably the best next fight. You know, that again on paper when you look at it, two cruiserweights from the Team GB setup, two top amateurs, gone pro, gone their separate ways. Arsenal fan versus Tottenham fan at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You know, Chev Clarke walking out to North London forever, but
brilliant.
Viddal Riley, more importantly, bringing a bit of silverware back to Tottenham for the first time. Yeah. So, excitement.
I was going to say, as stupid as it probably sounds, I think Viddal Riley's like the best kept secret in British boxing. Because
do you know what I like though on his Twitter when he put a picture out? He said the first ever British YouTuber to win the British champion, or first ever YouTuber to win the British championship.
I feel like Saturday will now, that's going to propel him and be in the eyes of a lot of boxing fans like, oh, he is the real deal, because he looked amazing. Did we all predict
Viddal Riley
to win? But not like Chev Clarke is a top fighter. Like, could probably mix it at world level. If not, he's there. Well, he's already fought at European level, but Riley he showed his class and showed how good he is, how good he can be. And was it 13-0 he is at British champion? Like, he'll kick on again now, probably fight European level next, or for one of those belts they get you, ranking belts.
So he could fight the guy who beat Chev in Monaco, couldn't he? I think Mosquera.
The European.
Mosquera's a tiny fighter.
He is. I think what Vidal's problem has been is entirely out of his own control. There's the YouTube thing and KSI's trainer, which has discredited him as a fighter. to a degree, not fairly, but it has. People see him like that, and then you've got the various injury pullouts, the various issues he's had with that, and it's just taken a while to get going. But really, genuinely, he's always been probably the best of that class of cruiserweights that came through the GB setup, and has basically been waiting for the opportunity to prove it, I think. And there he had it in his home stadium. He proved it, that he is the best cruiserweight in Britain that hasn't moved on to world level, the likes of Billam-Smith, Riakporhe, etc. And, you know, there are great fights for him coming up.
He does also hold a win over Mr. Daniel Dubois as well.
He does.
In the amateurs?
In the amateurs.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Someone's done their research.
He's just...
I do like what he put in his report afterwards about the Tottenham trophy cabinet, with the belt now. That he's won silverware at Tottenham for the first time.
Yeah, I think, what was it, Simon Jordan, I think it was, that tweeted maybe, that was like, Connor Benn after the loss needed somewhere quiet and empty to collect his thoughts, and Daniel Levy invited him into the trophy cab room, which is good, it's funny. The Tottenham stuff, but like you said, I think Tottenham is the place now for British boxing. We've had some good nights there already.
That stadium is incredible.
Yeah.
It's the best stadium I've ever been to.
Let's have a look at the collection of boxing events we've had there recently.
Well, I think we can name them. I can name them off the top of my head.
I'm sure you can, but just to double check, it's the cards at the bottom.
I won't look. I'll guess, all right?
Well, there's two. It's easy.
AJ Usyk.
Yeah.
And Fury Chisora.
Yeah.
Bash.
But when you look at this, the nights,
top boxing knowledge.
Daniel Dubois, Kevin Lorena was genuinely a good fight.
Incredible fight.
Lorena caused him some
He's
slight
fighting
issues at
this
the
week.
start.
Lorena defending his WBC cruiserweight belt.
And then you look at that AJ Usyk fight was, again, you know...
Was that the one where AJ went nuts at the end?
No, that was in Jeddah.
Yeah. But it's just like that, and then the 3 nights they've had have been brilliant. And it's, you know...
Is that down to Tottenham, or is that down to the matchmaking there?
Stadium and size of events, I
tell you what would fit lovely into that September booking.
Yeah, we'll get onto that one at the end, because I think I know what you're going to say. Before that...
Easing us, Ben.
Fits lovely.
Aaron McKenna has announced himself on the world level, and I think to some people a surprise, to others not. I had full confidence. I put my predictions together, and I was very confident in my predictions, so much so I put money on it. But the McKenna fight, I was 100% confident. I was like, McKenna's going to do the job. Yeah, because I just think... Yeah.
It's one I called wrong, to be fair.
I think that he's one of those fighters that just hasn't had the opportunities and the fights and the promotions in order to prove that he's a top level. You know, an 18-year-old that was going to get sent to the Olympics with Ireland chose to go pro instead. You know, trained with the likes of Freddie Roach. You don't get that. Sparred in 2 or 3 of Terence Crawford's camps with Bud.
I want to say
you don't get those opportunities if you're not the real deal.
Yeah, and to be fair to him as well, to give him full credit, I think a lot of people add this down as a bit of a firefight. It'd be like 2 men meeting in the middle.
I think they got the wrong McKenna.
Yeah, see which one lost. But Aaron McKenna fully outboxed Liam-Smith. Much more experienced, sort of veteran fighter, outboxed him, and I thought won every single round.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's sort of like the coming out show for him now that he's announced himself, like you said, on this stage, and there's talks of him potentially fighting the main event winner. You know, that's what Liam-Smith was talking about all week. He wants to never go at Eubank or happily fight Ben. The question was, though, how much does Liam-Smith have left? And on Saturday night, I think he showed that perhaps without being in the ring, obviously the last time he was in the ring was against Eubank Jr. in that rematch that he lost, but he got stopped in that rematch, didn't he? And yeah, great performance by McKenna, and unlike his brother, he knows how to box. His brother just knows one way, I think, and that's just bite down on your gum shield and just go for it. For him, he's more technical, more smart. Some of the shots he was landing was so effortless. It was unbelievable, and he just showed that, you know, this was his sort of big test. This was like the sort of fight where everyone in the world of boxing is going to see him for the first time, really, you know. And for him to put on a performance like that for the first time in a massive stadium like that, with the amount of pressure that was on his shoulders, because people were saying in the build-up, oh, Liam-Smith is past it, McKenna's easily going to get the job done. And, you know, hardly there was pressure on that, and then people saying Liam-Smith passed it, and then there's more pressure. But to put in a performance like that takes some doing. And like you, Ben, I thought he won every single round. And he didn't make it, I think for Liam-Smith, the fight he wanted was the sort of fight that his brother, McKenna, fight's like, and he didn't get that. And when he realised he wasn't going to get that, I was thinking, when he was getting to round 7, 8, I was just thinking, come on, Paul, get him out of there. You know, perhaps let's have him back up in Liverpool one last time before he retires. But credit for him for getting through the entire 12 rounds. But like I said, Aaron McKenna now has announced himself, and he's definitely a problem at 160, I think. And it's all about managing him now. I think he's managed by Mick Hennessy. So
yeah, Mick Hennessy is promoting him. But I think
you want him to get onto another big card now and keep on building, because it's pointless having this sort of fight and then just going straight back down to fighting someone that you can easily beat. It's all about now making that next step up, and then the next one, and then the next one, continuously testing yourself.
We've seen that with these big cards, haven't we? Where we've seen, you know, once fighters kind of get in on the crowd, they kind of, as long as they, you know, prove their worth, they kind of get continued opportunities. You know, Josh Padley now had the first fight with Chamberlain, and that's earned him the Shakur fight, and now it's earned him a matchroom promotion. And I think McKenna, with that kind of performance, they will be inclined to get him, you know, involved in future cards for obvious reasons. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to see what has come out. You know, we've already mentioned the middleweight champions, Lara, Janabek and Adames, all three of whom I think, you know, albeit he's going to need a fight or two to get up there rankings-wise, I think he could do, you know, mix it with those guys, which is really what you need. You know, you can't say guaranteed world champion, but I think he certainly will fight for a world title probably within the next year or two.
Yeah, that fight was for one of those ranking belts.
It was WBA, Intercontinental, International. I forget which one of the two.
So I'm guessing
yeah, he was top 15 with the IBF going into the fight, and then this will probably get him into the top 10 with WBA and the IBF.
is the WBA champion.
Yeah, and then he's probably up into the top 10 with the IBF as well now. So
that'll be a good little fight for him.
Yeah, there's good fights. There is good fights for him. Chris Miller-Smith, Bandon Glanton.
What a way to start the night.
You predicted an upset in that one.
No, I like to come out now and say that
I'm not having this.
No, I predicted him to win, but the worst thing was he said something so stupid on Thursday. I was like, I want Billam-Smith to absolutely destroy him now. And yeah, listen, it was for the opening 4 rounds. I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, Harry Tovey's prediction, bold prediction as it was, it could be coming in here. But as the fight went on, I think Billam-Smith's experience at that world level showed, and perhaps that night now in Riyadh that he had against Yarde was an off night for him, and you know, it's probably the worst night to have an off night when you're fighting. Or even
just a lesson learned.
Yeah, or he's just not at that level. And I think he just showed tonight that Billam-Smith still got a lot more to give in this cruiserweight division. You know, he wants to fight the likes of Jai Opetaia, which, you know, is a great fight for him, probably. But I don't think it's a very competitive fight. But you got to give props to Glanton as well. I thought he came to fight. The reason why I was going for my prediction was when I was reading a lot about him, he went to Russia and he made a Russian quit. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. We haven't really seen much of him. And, you know, out of all the fights on the card, people were saying that this is probably the sleeper on it because it's a lot more competitive than people are thinking. And it kind of in that way it was. And I think a 116, 112 reflects that. And like I said, as the fight went on, you can tell that the inexperience was coming in for Glanton, and Billam-Smith just took control. And the other thing I liked about Billam-Smith was Glanton was coming with his head a lot, leaning, and was probably, that was in a way was smart because he's putting all his weight on Billam-Smith, tiring him. But you see so many fighters when a fighter's coming forward with their head, complain and everything. Billam-Smith just got on with it and continued, and that's why I liked it.
He was getting on his nerves, but he didn't. Yeah. He is a class act.
He's literally his nickname, the gentleman.
He's such a class act, and I think, you know, he's a great ambassador for British boxing in terms of as a human and as a fighter. And
do you know the annoying thing about that fight though? Hardly anyone was in the stadium.
Yeah.
You were there, obviously, but it was empty.
I don't think
it was the same.
I don't think it filled up till Anthony Yarde and Arthur.
But you've spent so much money.
Oh, yeah,
and I know that main event.
I was sat there for every single fight.
That main event in itself justified the fee.
Yeah.
But you've got.
How much was a ticket for?
It's like £100 if you're way up.
Some people are just there to watch a main event, don't they? So, like, not everyone in that stadium, as shit as it sounds, are pure boxing fans.
No, of course not.
They're just going to be there for the atmosphere and for
the pints.
And for the free t-shirts.
You were saying there with Glanton, like coming in with his head, I think that was sort of his downfall in a way, because he was just coming through like head down, but wasn't really paying much attention to where any of the shots were coming from. So he was just trying to walk Billam-Smith down, but Billam-Smith would just back himself into the ropes, wait for him to come in, bang, and spin around him and get out. And I think that was probably where he was starting to lose the fight. But where do you think Billam-Smith goes from here in terms of... Because I don't think Viddal Riley's too far off being able to beat Billam-Smith.
Are they under the same promotion though? Billam-Smith's boxer,
they're both boxers.
They're both boxers.
Okay.
I think the problem with Billam-Smith is you don't want the Opataya fight for him,
No.
for obvious reasons.
You want that when you know your time is up.
You don't want the Zurdo Ramirez fight again,
That's what I mean,
for obvious reasons. So it's going to be a difficult route back to world level, but I think he's going to back himself. He's going to work hard. And
You could give it a go, but I don't... In terms of the world champions that are there at cruiserweight now, I don't know if he beats them.
No, it is difficult. I think he's got another shot at a world title in his career yet, but
Michael Chev Clarke?
it's going to be but he's not a champion. You know, it's a good fight, but what does that give Billam-Smith? So yeah, it'll be a difficult one to manage that.
Oh, here's one. Robin Sirwan Safar, the guy who beat Sergey Kovalev.
Yeah, but again, like, do I
It's for nothing.
It's a build-up
True.
fight
I know what you
to
mean.
build yourself to
Yeah.
an Opataya fight or Ramirez fight that I just see him losing, unfortunately. I would love to see Billam-Smith, hold a world title again, but I just can't imagine it.
The route there is like you either fight someone that's not going to get you there, or you actually you go right, bugger that, I'm going straight there.
Yeah, and then you get found out, or maybe he doesn't. But I can't imagine him beating either of those. Before we move on to some big news that you sort of half mentioned earlier, before this also turns into an hour-long episode, Anthony Yarde, Lyndon Arthur.
Oh, we can talk quickly about that.
Anthony Yarde won, didn't he? We all think.
Yeah.
It was.
I think it was a good competitive fight between the two. I was surprised Lyndon Arthur started very well. I thought there was a bit of back and forth who both getting success, but towards the back end of the fight, where they both starting to tire, I thought Anthony Yarde was just doing... He started to lean on him,
pressured
started
him back,
pressure
didn't he?
him back. He was the one controlling the centre of the ring, and Arthur sort of started to spend a bit too much time on the ropes, take too many shots.
Yeah.
I think that was the difference, but was it a great night for...
It was badly
Yarde?
placed.
Like,
It shouldn't. The only problem with this fight is it should have been a co-main.
No.
If this
shouldn't
fight
have,
was
but-
first, and then Billam-Smith, then Liam Smith, McKenna, then Chev Clarke, Viddal Riley as the co-main, perfect card. I think it fell a little bit flat, and it didn't matter because the atmosphere was so great for that main event. But I didn't overly care for it. Third time, yeah.
Well,
I think
probably
Yarde's
have it
got
fourth time now.
They both weren't at their best, I don't think. Yarde, I'll happily see a Boatsi fight next for him.
That's all right.
Lyndon Arthur, difficult to find a big fight for Lyndon Arthur. Maybe a Ben Whittaker fight,
I was
someone
going to
like
say
that.
Ben Whittaker would be a good one.
But again,
Louis Edmondson?
yeah, if you want,
Lyndon
but
Arthur?
will he want a shot at the British and Commonwealth
Sure.
for that? I don't know. It's interesting to see, but what both of them have decent fights left, but it just wasn't against each other.
Yeah.
So we'll have to park that one and move on to the big news that nobody expected. Tyson Fury might be coming back, guys. Did
Mate.
you expect that?
Funny how we dropped the video the same day Dubois, Usyk, I guess,
Yeah.
announced as well.
But let's be real. Of course he's coming back. We all
There's
said
no way.
it.
There's no way you turn down that money fight with Joshua.
No.
Even though it's later than what we should have had.
I thought it was a Derek Chisora 4 fight. He's coming back.
Imagine.
I think the thing with Fury as well is
Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
he loves to be a showman, doesn't he?
He does.
And I think he loves to give the fans what they want deep down. And I just think it is what everyone wants. It just is.
Has
And I think-
AJ put something up today as well of him in training?
yeah,
He's
he's
back.
been
He's
training.
back.
He obviously had an injury, didn't he?
That September date is just perfect now.
Yeah, I mean, it
Just
gives
slot them in
them
there.
5 months to get ready for it. You know, Tyson Fury will come
That
in.
could, look, we talked about Eubank Ben being the biggest fight in Britain this year. That tops it, I think.
Yeah.
The biggest fight in British history, I think that could be potentially.
You could have AJ Tyson as the main event. You could have Connor Benn and Harlem on the undercard of that. You could get Chris Eubank Jr. on the undercard in a good fight against.
You could even just have the
someone like-
rematch on the undercard. That's
You
what
could,
they're
but
probably-
I don't personally want to see that fight. And you're going to get some really.
There's
good-
only there's a handful of fights that can stop traffic. in this country and can get in the front pages of newspapers. That's one of them. Fury, AJ. People will be talking about that, and you know, if for any reason they get it over the line, wow. But my thing, I don't want to put a dampener on it, but I think it's a couple of years too late.
Oh yeah, it is too late.
See, this is the rerun of me with Eubank Benn, isn't it? Oh, it's a great fight.
It's a great fight. I'm not going to say I don't want to see it and it's a crap fight like you said about it, but I just think if that happens, that's the biggest fight I think in British boxing and in world boxing for a long, long time.
What would be really funny though is if them two, obviously, if they can schedule that to fight in September, but you've got Daniel Dubois as the undisputed heavyweight champion.
Imagine.
Yeah, like, it could happen.
That's a mad world.
It really could. But we'll get onto that Usyk Dubois in our preview later on in the week. So stick around for that. But it's the only fight left to care for Fury and for AJ, right?
Yeah.
There's
nothing else out there from, is it?
I don't want to see Fury Dubois. I don't want to see anyone else fight Fury. He lost the 2 fights against Usyk. I can live with that. I don't want to see AJ fight Dubois again. He lost the 2 fights against Usyk.
Yep.
Deontay Wilder's, happy and doesn't want to fight really anymore.
But he's fighting again though, ain't he?
He is, but he just doesn't care for it and he just wants the money. And I just think this is the only fight left for the both of them. And so if they're both and/or one of them is intent on staying in the sport, then this is the only fight that I really care about seeing. Yeah. So make it happen.
It's a good going out fight for the pair of them as well.
Oh, big time, yeah. And also if both of them have that fight kind of in the knowledge that it's gonna be the end, then they can kind of have that fight and then they don't really still have a horse in the race. So they can kind of just afterwards embrace and go, wasn't it a laugh this last 10, 15 years? We've had a good run. We finished with the fight everyone wanted, the fight that we wanted.
Deep down, they're just really good friends, aren't they? Christmas dinner they have together.
I don't know about that, but because I think if you were in the mental state of I'm hanging up the gloves now, you could almost park your ego for that 5 minutes in a way they might not otherwise.
How many times has Tyson Fury though announced his retirement?
So many.
So many, and it's like the boy who cried wolf, ain't he?
He's technically still not back yet, but until they announce
but he's gonna be.
Well, Sugar's out with him, so he must be thinking, something's happening. But like I said, can you imagine when that is announced? Every single newspaper will have that on the front page. Every single news, ITV News, BBC News will have that as their main story.
Yeah.
Everyone will be talking about it, and it's the sort of fight.
Splits the country down the middle.
100%.
Oh, big time, yeah.
100%. And
this fight, the Eubank Benn one, split a lot of people. It was the kind of do you prefer Benn or do you prefer Eubank? Do you think Ben's going to knock him out? Do you think Eubank's going to win on a points decision? But that one, there's going to be.
If you have to say no.
Oh, I was going to say
me
the same
stood
thing.
in the middle. What? Who wins? Tyson Fury's the favourite.
Yeah.
I think. He's shown a higher level more recently. He's had 2 better fights against Usyk than AJ had, and but I just prefer AJ. Do you know what I mean? This might be one where you predict with your heart rather than your head because
draw.
Do you think?
Yeah, draw then a rematch.
Draw then a rematch, then the trilogy, and then we'll have the 4th fight.
Yeah, but
2020.
They're not at this stage. They're not polished enough. A Fury where almost got stopped by Usyk in the first fight, an AJ that got cleaned out by Daniel Dubois. Could we see a stoppage in that fight? I wouldn't put it. Let's be real though. We're going to get a Tyson Fury Undertaker, even if he does go down and he just gets to 9.9 seconds. He's clean out and he just sits up, stands up, and moves on like he's never been. Fresh as a daisy round 1. So it's
what a fight that would be, and.
That fight week build-up would be something
We're
special.
getting so spoilt though, aren't we?
It's going to hit like crack. But Ben does make an important point. It hasn't been announced yet, so let's not get too carried away.
Too excited.
We've got a big fight coming up, obviously, to talk about. That's just been announced that we'll talk about in our preview, and we've got 3 huge sets of fighters cards on this weekend.
Every single day.
Pound for pound star, a pound for pound star, and then obviously the one in Times Square, which will be interesting to see. We'll preview all of that later on in the week on Thursday at 4 p.m, so subscribe if you haven't already, or you can follow us on Spotify if you prefer the audio versions. There's also going to be lots of great content, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the places you can find us, Instagram. get us and follow us on there. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Puncher's Chance. We'll see you all later in the week.
Puncher's Chance. Puncher's Chance podcast.